Hi, my name is Chef Jennifer Cabillos, and today we're going to be making a Black Forest torte. We're going to be using chocolate cake, cherry filling, soft ganache, and whipped cream. Then we'll be masking the exterior with some dried chocolate cake crumbs, and then garnishing with toasted cocoa nibs and maraschino cherries. Traditionally, Black Forest cake is made with a chocolate sponge cake that's soaked in a kirsch simple syrup. Kirsch is a cherry-flavored liqueur, but I'm going to be using my chocolate pound cake from a previous video just to use up the cake that I already have. Because this is a fat-based cake, I won't be soaking it in any form of simple syrup. Because I'm using a pound cake and my filling is very soft, I'm using the ganache to make multiple dams that are going to hold my cake up and prevent it from squishing my cherry filling out of the cake. I'm also going to be icing with whipped cream, which is particularly difficult because it is very fragile and easily damaged by any warm conditions. If you over whip your whipped cream, then you won't be able to smooth it properly. Let's get started. Here I have my chocolate cake already torted into 3 1-inch layers. Center the layers on the cake board and trim the cake till there is a 1/4 inch gap between the cake and the board. Be sure to cut straight up and down so that the layers are the same size. Since I'll be using the board as a guide for icing, the more cake I trim, the thicker the exterior icing will be. If you do not trim the cake enough or don't trim it evenly, then the cake will show through your final layer of icing. The excess cake scraps can be saved and used fresh or dry for many recipes. In this case, I dried and ground the extra cake and will use it to mask the sides later. My goal is to have a 1/4 inch layer of icing on the top and all the way around the sides of the cake. You can check that you've trimmed the cake properly by using a bench scraper or joint knife and pressing it against the board as you turn it to make sure that you have a 1/4 inch gap around the top and bottom of your cake. Since I have a dense cake with a soft whipped cream icing and soft cherry filling, I'll be using a 1-to-1 ganache for strength and support. When filling a cake with 2 dams, it is easier to add filling with a piping bag than a spatula. A dam is a layer of thick icing that holds up the next layer of cake and holds in any soft filling. A dam should be a 1/4 to a 1/2 inch thick and applied on but not over the top edge of the cake. Filling should not exceed the height of the dam, as this will destabilize the structure of the cake. Once the filling is added, cover it with the next layer of cake, making sure that the cake layer is centered, the edges are flush, and the top is level. One poorly placed cake layer can make your cake crooked or cause the cake to show through the icing. For very soft fillings, consider using 2 dams by making them in equally spaced concentric circles. Once your cake is filled, you will need to apply a crumb coat. This is a thin layer of icing covering the entire cake. This helps lock in crumbs, prevents the cake from drying, and establishes your cake's final shape. Start by spreading any excess from the dam. Add only enough icing to cover the cake. Make the crumb coat as thin and smooth as possible. Any excess crumb coat icing has limited use because it is now contaminated with cake crumbs. I like to wrap my crumb-coated cakes in plastic wrap for several reasons. Cakes can be stored like this in the refrigerator for up to a week, or in the freezer for a month or longer. However, the quality of the cake filling may deteriorate slightly over long-term freezing. It acts as a protective layer to prevent the cake from drying out or absorbing smells or flavors from your refrigerator. It allows you a final opportunity to straighten, center, and level your cake manually. Finally, it allows you to label the cake with important information like cake size, flavor, date, and customer name. Once wrapped, the cake should be chilled until the crumb coat is set to the touch, at least 10 to 15 minutes. Recenter your cake and re-smooth your crumb coat before icing if necessary. The first step of icing a cake is to completely cover the cake in a very thick layer of icing. Start with the top. Add more icing than you think you'll need. Use an offset spatula to spread the icing over the surface. Hold the spatula level with the blade at a 45-degree angle and rotate the cake quickly to remove excess. Now cover the sides of the cake by gathering icing on 2/3 of the spatula, then quickly pressing it against the side of the cake. Gently move the spatula back and forth to adhere the icing to the cake. Make sure to cover the entire cake with a layer of icing thick enough to fill the gap between the cake and the board. Make sure the icing on the sides of the cake is the same thickness on the top and bottom in order to get straight sides. Make sure the icing on the sides of the cake rise above the top surface of the cake, creating a wall all the way around. This will help you form sharp corners later. Once the cake is fully covered, you can begin shaping. Start by using a bench scraper or joint knife to remove excess from the side. Hold the joint knife perpendicular to the cake. Touch the bottom corner of the blade gently to the cake board while tilting the top corner away from the cake. Spin the turntable while maintaining gentle pressure on the cake board. After each rotation, lift the angle of the spatula slightly to remove more excess. Scrape excess icing off the blade and back into your bowl after each rotation. Once the spatula is straight up and down and the sides look straight, you can begin shaping the top. Hold the spatula level and even to the desired final height of the cake. Tilt the blade to a 45-degree angle and apply only horizontal pressure, moving the spatula from the edge of the cake inwards. Move 2/3 of the way across the cake before quickly lifting your spatula off of the surface. Scrape excess icing off the spatula and back into the bowl each time. Continue this process around the entire top of the cake until you've created corners and the top of the cake is flat. Going back to the sides of the cake with your joint knife. But this time, make sure the blade is perfectly straight up and down and at a 20-degree angle from the cake. Apply very gentle pressure and turn the table a full 360 degrees in one swift, smooth motion. To finish smoothing the top of the cake, you will use a similar process as when you were removing excess icing from the top of the cake. Holding your spatula even and level, reduce the angle of the spatula blade to the cake to 20 degrees. Move your spatula swiftly across the top of the cake from the outside to 2/3 away across before lifting your spatula off the top of the cake. Smoothing is the final process that perfects the shape and smooths out any air bubbles or imperfection. Now you should have a cake with a smooth level top, crisp clean corners, smooth straight sides, and a thin even layer of icing with no visible crumbs or air bubbles. Finally, you're ready to decorate your cake. For this cake, I'll be masking the entire sides of the cake with dried ground cake crumbs. When masking, you apply a decorative item gently up the sides of a cake by pressing it into the icing gently while rotating. This works best when the icing is fresh, before refrigerating. You can also use chopped nuts, cookie crumbs, sprinkles, or any other fine mixture. Always tap off excess crumbs before taping the cake to its final board. Apply whipped cream peaks using a piping bag with a large star tip. Press firmly at first, then ease off the pressure while moving your bag straight up and down. Make sure that each peak is equal distance from the edge of the cake. Top these peaks with gently dried maraschino cherries. Stem on cherries add height and visual contrast, but also add an edible element to your cake. Sprinkle with toasted cocoa nibs, making sure to apply them neatly and evenly. Refrigerate cakes for at least 20 to 30 minutes before cutting to allow all the softer components to chill and firm. In order to cut the cake, use a long, sharp knife, preferably serrated. Push straight down and then remove by dragging across the bottom, not by lifting back out. Wipe your knife with a clean, damp cloth between each cut. Properly filled cake should have even, level cake and filling layers, with straight sides and a level top. I hope you enjoyed this video and can use it to successfully make your own Black Forest cake. Stay tuned for more educational videos.